Hello, glad you could join me. I am starting a new series. It's going to be kind of a hobby vlog to where I go through and I'm getting questions now on why I do things or how I do things. And sometimes I don't think, if I was to cover them in a tutorial or a work in process, I think it would make that video really long. So I want to be able to address some of those questions and answers. No, mine are the answers. Some of the questions that come up when I do tutorials or work in process. First of all, I'd like to kind of explain my difference on work in process versus a tutorial. My work in process is I'm really trying just to show you the progression of something. I'm not really going into depths as far as to how I do something. You may be able to glean that information off of that work in process, but I plan on coming back on certain things as far as like how to do certain things that were illustrated in the whip and giving a more detailed explanation of how, and maybe some whys in there, so you kind of understand. And mind you, this is all John 101. This is all my philosophy, my ideas. I don't pretend to be an expert. I don't want to come across that way, and I'm not. There's people out there that destroy me. So that being said, this is just why I do things, because the questions are being directed towards the things that I do. And my tutorials will give more detail than my work in process. My daughter-in-law Heidi actually noticed that in my one of my whips, that she said that I really don't explain something. So I thought that was good. She noticed it and knows it's deliberate. It's on purpose. So I'm not trying to hide something. And I used to keep secrets as far as my trade secrets, what I would call trade secrets, a long time ago, and I don't care anymore. I'm to the point now where I want to employ my mom's philosophy, where she just wants to teach people and to try to help people feel like they can do art. Because my mom's philosophy, my mom taught art for over 20 years, and her philosophy was anybody can do art, and she truly believed that, and I believe that too. I believe anybody can do art. It says I think you have your gifted people, or the people that may have a natural born talent, versus your people who may have to struggle at it a little bit more. And you may see those gifted people that may excel faster, but it doesn't mean that someone who is not naturally gifted, I don't know any other way to explain that, won't excel. And she has there's some perfect examples. Some of her students, a couple in particular, one in particular, but several of them did this, that they didn't believe they were very good students, and they didn't believe that they were excelling in art or could do art. And they went on to make art a career. One of them had, I don't know if he still does, but had an art studio in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he had his artwork painted up there. Up there, and I know other people that were her students that did the same thing. So I believe that's my philosophy too. I believe anybody can do art, and it's just sometimes it takes enthusiasm. You want to do it, perseverance, and most of all, execution. Just wanting to do it and executing. But this segment, I really want to get into the row house. I want to explain the row house because that's what my current whips are on. And I want to explain what their purpose is and why I did them. So the purpose is, it's kind of interesting. Years ago, Rackham had these magnificent, I thought they were magnificent backdrops for their studio pictures, for their miniatures. I thought they're amazing. I go, how do they do that? And I wanted to learn how to do it. But I didn't want to do it on a massive scale because I figured that would be overwhelming. And at the same time, I'm really into terrain and the theme of when I game. It doesn't matter if it's an RPG game. It doesn't matter if it's a tabletop game. It doesn't matter what it is. I love terrain. In fact, one of my biggest, one of my saddest moments in gaming when I was playing War Machine Hordes Mark 1, and it went to Mark 2, and all of a sudden they stopped using terrain like they did. I mean, I had Tharn Ravagers, I love the terrain, I love the forest, I really wanted to do that. And all of a sudden, they started going to felt and to flatter things. And I really felt, it really was, I couldn't bring myself to playing the game anymore, because terrain to me is a big component of playing a game, because I like the imagination. I like that aspect of it. So I'm kind of rambling. So to get back to the row houses, I wanted more theme to my board. I wanted also like containment, but I didn't want to take a lot of space on the board. So I wanted an edge piece, and I thought, well, in Europe, because I like World War II history, and that's one of my favorite genres to play games in, is World War II. I grew up playing World War II games, bookcase games, Squad Leader in particular, and I really love that genre. Really loved that. My brother taught me all those games. So, but I remember row houses. You know, I believe they're in Europe, where there's just house, and they're all touching each other. That's a good way to teach myself how to do the techniques, or try to learn how to do the techniques that I saw in the Rackham pictures. So I could do a section of the row house, learn something new, try a new wood piece, try a new wood carving, try some stucco, try to embed the skull, which I'll show a tutorial how I embedded the skull. I just want to see if I could, and that's why the skull is by mine. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's there because I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if I can pull it off, because I didn't sculpt the skull. It's a cast. So I made a cast, and I wanted to see if I could pull it off to make it look like it was actually part of that whole piece. And then I wanted to learn how to carve rocks, because I kept trying to carve rocks, and I have a roadhouse up there. One of the first ones I ever did was I did on the Privateer Press Forum back in 2006, maybe. I think it was 2006. Right after I got into hordes. Had some friends bring back some miniatures from SoCal. But anyway, and I did those stones, but I saw the stones that Rackham did, and I go, oh, wait a minute, my stones suck compared to those. And I wanted to learn how to do those. And what I learned is the variation of depth, and it was more character, and they exaggerated. And I thought, oh, wow, I like that. So that's why the stonework. And then I wanted to see what stone looked like with the stucco, and so every element of the row house gave me that opportunity. I wanted to see what one house looked like with junk. And to be honest with you, why my other row houses don't have junk all over, I got to paint this. It's like, that's a lot of crap to paint. And so that's part of the reason. It's just, and then they had all these little things like pegs and chains, and it just looked cool. And some things you look at and you go, that doesn't make any sense, but it looks cool. And why'd they do that? Well, it looks cool. And that's part of the reason why I was doing all it. It's basically experimentation. And the row houses were a teaching moment for me. And it was to add theme. I started this back in 2012. I have a problem, and that is I think of something that I want to do, and I want to try to figure out how to do it. And then once I figure out how to do it, or I'm satisfied with it, I have a real hard time finishing that project. Really hard time. But what stepping out of my comfort zone and doing these videos has helped me to do is I now have purpose to finish these projects. I'm very glad that I am, because I've always wanted to finish them. I just never had that oomph to do it. And this has given me that push. But anyway, that's why I have the roadhouses, and that's why they are what they are. I do want more theme on the side of my board without taking up a lot of space. I actually credited Floating Earth for that very reason too. I wanted more surface area on a 4x4 board for War Machine Hordes without taking up space. So I made it was like a magical, they tore a piece of earth out of the ground and it was floating. I did that for the terrain thralls. And so I did that, and that's where the inception of the row houses came from. I wanted side pieces, and I also wanted to teach myself how to do what Rackham was doing. And because the stuff they did was so fascinating. Now, granted, my stuff is way more colorful than theirs is. Theirs is more grays and browns and those types of tones. And I wanted mine to look more lived in. And someone made the comment of cartoonish, and I agree, they are. But there's a purpose for it. The reason why I do exaggerated highlights on some things is miniatures do the same things. But I want a terrain. If I do it to where it doesn't have a lot of exaggerated highlights, when I stick it on the table at 3-4 feet away from me, it doesn't pop like if I'm looking at it right next to my finger, like you'd examine a miniature. And I wanted my terrain to pop at 3 feet or 4 feet. I wanted those details to still pop. That's why you'll see an exaggerated highlight on a crack, and then you'll see a dark shadow under the crack. Then it magnifies or accentuates that crack line, and I can see it from a distance. And that's why I do those things and that I do. But if you have any more questions, feel free, and I'll do these occasionally to help explain some of the questions I'm getting, and hopefully it helps with my logic behind it. And like I said, I'll go back into the details of why I do some of the things I do. And if you have any questions or want to know how I did something, let me know. I'm beyond the stage of my life of keeping all my secrets to myself, or keeping some of the secrets. Like you'll find out. I actually am friends with Scotty because of that very reason, and I'll let him explain it when it comes time. But that's how come I have the row houses. I wanted it in segments so I could learn and do things and exaggerate and try, and so I could apply it to future projects. And that's exactly why I did it. But also in the same breath, it was to give me more theme to the side of my board. And I made them the way I did so I could apply them to several games. I could apply them to Warlord. I could apply it to a variety of games. I can apply them to RPG games. That can be a side piece where I can set up. I plan on making a lot of accessories for these row houses down the road. Little like stands, like meat stands and fruit stands and different things like that. That way I can kind of have a theme and for RPG games. So they're multi-purpose. They're really there's a few games that obviously they can't be, but it's make-believe. So I can, and it's my house, it's my game. It's so there's things I do for that, but I'm rambling. But if you like what we're doing here, if these are useful videos to you and you enjoy it, and share it with other people so hopefully they can learn. Well, that's about it for the first installment of my video vlogs, and just keep imagining, execute, persevere, and remember what my mom said, that anyone can do art. Cool fire. Southern Nights.
Did you say so, dude?
What?
Did you say
Southern Nights.